Probably one of the most basic skills you'd ever develop in a program like Adobe Illustrator would be selection. Now, it may seem simple, and actually it is, but in complex situations, selection can help you control what you're trying to do. This is an object-oriented program by definition, so it's different than a program like Photoshop. In Photoshop, it's almost like you're putting paint on a canvas, and with all the obvious implications of trying to change anything on a canvas. In Adobe Illustrator, each one of these shapes, squares, polygons, stars, whatever, are objects. Each one of those objects can be controlled independently. To help us through this process, Adobe Illustrator gives us 5 selection tools. So if you come over here, you can see this one is the basic selection tool. Click and hold here, and you see a direct selection tool and a group selection tool. If we click here, we have a magic wand and we have a lasso. In this lesson, we're going to concentrate on these first 3, the selection tool and these 2 right here. And let's start with the basics of basics, the selection tool. If you're the type of person that surprises easily, then for this next demonstration, I want you seated, because I'm going to come over here with that tool selected and click on that star and select it. Isn't that amazing? Selection is important though. Once you have it selected, you have control of that object. I can change its fill, I can change its stroke, things that we'll do later. I can, of course, drag it and move it if that's what I want to do. I can press my delete key and get rid of it if I want to do that. Press undo to bring it back. Love undo. If you get into the middle again and hold the Alt key down, you will make a copy of that object, which is something we do quite a bit, to be honest with you. If I hold the Shift key during the move operation, I can drag it, and it will drag and force it to drag to a straight line, or in this case, a 45-degree angle. So the Shift key and the Alt key in the move position will either make copies of it or constrain the angle at which it moves. But the Alt key and the Shift key are different if you're resizing. If we come over here and get to a corner, one of these points, I can, of course, drag and resize it if I want to. Now remember, these are objects. They're not pixels. So resizing it will not impact quality, which is a good thing. If I hold the Alt key down now, it's not going to make a copy. It's going to draw in and out from center. And if at the same time I decide that I want the proportions the same, if I hold the Shift key down, it forces it to stay in proportions. So you have control that way with the same 2 keys, the Shift key and the Alt key. It just depends on what you're doing. If I come over here to a corner and I wait until the cursor goes bent like that, I can, of course, put it at an angle. So you have a lot of different things that you can do just simply with that tool. Don't forget the arrow keys. If I press the left arrow key, I will nudge, it's called nudging, 1 pixel at a time, left, right, up, or down. You want to go faster, hold the Shift key down. You actually have control over the nudge. The nudge is 1 pixel, but sometimes 1 pixel is too much. If you want to change the nudge, go to your preferences. Now that's Edit Preferences on a Windows system, Illustrator Preferences on a Mac, and go to General Preferences. There it is right there. Change that number. If you want a smaller nudge, like a 0.5 pixel, put a point right in front, 0.1, and you can actually control the keyboard increment. That's what that's all about. I do like that. Let's get out of here. So we can move it, delete it, rotate it, resize it, do anything we want to with that one tool. That leads us to the next one down here. This one's called Direct Selection, the first of the 2. This one's a little bit different. If I come over here and select the object again, I don't get that nice bounding box going around it. However, I have more direct control of the object itself. Now, we haven't drawn any shapes yet, but we will later. Shapes in Illustrator are composed of anchor points and paths, all kind of neatly put together. I call them nails in a board connected by rubber bands, which is kind of a good illustration, I guess. If I come over here again, I can move it. But here's the difference between the 2 tools. If I come to this point right here, there's an anchor right here. Now you deselect it first, and then you come over here and you click. You can actually control each one of the individual anchor points in any object. Gives you a lot of control over it when you think about it. So the Direct Selection tool gives me direct access to the points, the anchor points, and allows me to control literally the shape itself. A couple other things here. Andy, I want to resize it. So you select the Selection tool and you come over here and you resize it. And then I want to work on the anchor points, so you come over here and you click here. There is a way to reverse these tools so you can use them all at the same time. For example, if you're working with the selection tool, we can resize it. Reach over on your keyboard with the same tool held down and hold down the control key. That's the Apple key on a Mac. You now have the direct selection tool, even though you still have the other tool selected. You let go, you're back into regular mode again. Same thing with this one. You come over here, you make some changes. You say, well, now I want to resize it. Hold down the control key, same key, and you get access to the points around it that allow you to resize it, move it, rotate it, whatever you want to do. So it is possible, which to me is an efficiency thing, to manipulate the item, change it, and actually do both using any one of the tools. Remember the control key, Apple on a Mac, to make that happen. So what's this last one? And it's called group selection. To do that, we're going to have to make some groups. Let's do this. Let's pick up our selection tool. I'm going to drag. Here's another way to do multiple selections, is drag around them. Understand that Illustrator does not require, like some programs, to have the item or the object completely selected. All we got to do is take a bite out of it. So if I want to select these three, I can drag there and just do that. I've got those three selected. We're going to go to the word object and we're going to say group. What that means, I think you know this, they perform as one unit. Even though they're separate objects, they are in a sense one unit. We're going to do the same to these three. And we're going to do the same to these three. So we have three groups going now. If we pick up our selection tool, we can select any one of the groups and we can move those groups. If we pick up the direct selection tool, we have the ability to go in and just actually move one object, then go back to this tool in a sense and come over and we can then move them as a group again. So you can manipulate an object within the group, but I've got a much easier way to do that. We have groups again. Let's go back to our selection tool. Okay, we got them all selected. This is what I want you to do. Go to the group where you want to manipulate one of the objects in the group and double click right here with the selection tool. Now you'll notice up here, we are now in a group and you see all the stuff gray out. A lot of people don't know what that means. You're selecting this group and you're actually selecting that object within the group. I can then move that object if that's what I want to do or resize it. And if I come back up here and click on layer 1, these are now all back in a group again. So you don't have to use this tool to get to an object in a group, or you don't have to ungroup, change it, and group it again. With this one tool right here, just double click. All right, let's do this. Let's go back here. So what is the group selection tool, Andy? Let's pick it up. You will notice that if I do this, it's got a little plus sign on it. I click one time and I select one object. If I click again, I now select all the objects within the group. That's called group selection. Let's make this a little bit harder. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my selection tool again. I'm going to select this group and I'm going to select this group. So I'm shift clicking and I'm going to group them. This is called a nested group. So I have two groups that are grouped together, if you will. I'm then going to select this group and nest it. So I have this group nested with this group, nested with this group. And if I use my regular selection tool, I'm selecting all three groups at the same time. Now watch this. If I come over here now with the group selection tool, the first click selects an object. The second click selects the first group within the nest. If I click again, it selects the next group within the nest, and if I click again, it selects the next group within the nest. Now, again, in this case, we're working with simple objects, but understand something. If you work on complicated objects like a Cheshire cat or whatever you're building and putting together, you will probably have groups within groups. The group selection tool helps you select group within group within group within group, on and on and on it goes. The three basic selection tools in Adobe Illustrator are going to help make your life a whole lot easier when working on simple or even complex illustrations.